It's 3:17 a.m. Your on-call engineer gets a page. Multiple servers unreachable. She logs in remotely, or tries to. The login page isn't loading. She calls the operations center. They can't reach anything either. By 3:30, 17 people are on a conference call. By 4:00, it's clear. Every server in the environment has been encrypted. Every file on every drive is inaccessible. On each desktop, a ransom note. $4 million in Bitcoin, wired within 48 hours. It didn't start at 3:17. The attackers were in your network for 3 weeks before they pulled the trigger. You just didn't know it. Ransomware is malware that encrypts a victim's data and demands payment for decryption. The modern ransomware ecosystem operates as ransomware. As a service, developers build and maintain the malware and encryption infrastructure. Affiliates conduct the intrusions and deploy the malware, and proceeds are split, typically 80% to affiliates, 20% to developers. This model industrialized ransomware. It separated the technical expertise of malware development from the operational execution of attacks. Affiliates don't need to write code. They need access brokers, phishing templates, and the ransomware payload, all available through dark web marketplaces. In 2023, ransomware payments exceeded $1 billion for the first time. Initial access comes primarily through 3 vectors. Phishing delivers a malicious attachment or link that installs a loader, a small piece of malware that downloads and executes the actual payload. Exposed RDP, remote desktop protocol facing the internet, is brute-forced or credential, stuffed using purchase credential lists from previous breaches. Vulnerability exploitation targets known CVEs in VPN appliances, email gateways, and web-facing infrastructure that haven't been patched. Access brokers are a fourth, growing channel. Criminal marketplaces, where established network access is sold to ransomware affiliates. A broker compromises a network, establishes a foothold, then sells that foothold to the ransomware operator rather than deploying ransomware themselves. The dwell phase is what happens between initial access and ransomware detonation. Modern ransomware operators don't immediately encrypt. They spend days to weeks inside the network, conducting the same reconnaissance an espionage actor would, mapping Active Directory, identifying domain controllers, locating backup systems, finding the most critical data stores. They escalate privileges, harvest credentials with tools like Mimikatz, and move laterally until they've reached every high-value system. When they detonate, they encrypt everything simultaneously, not just one machine, but every machine they've reached, including the backups if those were accessible from the network. Double extortion has been standard since 2019, when Maze ransomware introduced it. Before encrypting, operators exfiltrate sensitive data, customer records, financial documents, intellectual property. The ransom demand now covers 2 threats: pay to get your decryption key and pay to prevent publication of the stolen data. Organizations that think they can recover from backups and not pay discover there's a second lever. Maze launched a public website listing victim companies with sample stolen documents. Every major ransomware group now operates a leak site. If payment isn't made within the deadline, data is published. This shifts the calculus from a technical recovery problem to a legal and reputational crisis. The encryption itself is cryptographically solid in modern ransomware. Attackers use hybrid encryption, a symmetric key, AES or CHATIA, encrypts the actual files, because symmetric encryption is fast. The symmetric key is then encrypted with the attacker's public RSA or elliptic curve key, which is sent to their servers. Without the corresponding private key, the encrypted symmetric key is unrecoverable. This is why early ransomware variants that used weak random number generators or hard-coded keys were eventually decryptable. Researchers found the weakness. Modern ransomware that implements the cryptography correctly leaves no path to decryption without the private key. The math is not breakable with current computing resources. The backup situation is the primary determinant of whether you pay. Backups that are offline, completely disconnected from the network, and tested regularly for integrity are what survive a ransomware event. Backups that are network connected, share credentials with the production environment, or haven't been tested for restoration are typically encrypted alongside everything else. The backup strategy that works. 3 copies of data on 2 different media types, with 1 copy stored offline and 1 stored off-site. This is the 3-2-1 rule. Organizations that follow it don't pay ransom. Organizations that thought their backup system would survive because it's a separate server on the same network often discover they were wrong. Incident response before the incident is what separates organizations that recover in days from organizations that recover in weeks. Having a documented IR plan, a retained IR firm on retainer, a defined communication chain, and an isolated backup environment means that when the ransom note appears at 3 a.m., the next steps are already determined. Organizations that have none of this spend the first 12 hours deciding who to call, rather than containing the damage. Cyber insurance policies often require you to use the insurer's panel IR firm. Knowing who that is before the event matters more than knowing after, when the firm may have a multi-day response backlog during a wave of simultaneous incidents. The decision to pay or not pay is genuinely complex. Law enforcement in the US and UK officially advises against paying. Payment funds the criminal enterprise and encourages future attacks. OFAC sanctions mean that paying certain groups is itself a federal offense. The FBI has gone further. Paying rarely results in a better outcome than not paying. Recovery from backups, though painful, produces a cleaner environment than trusting a decryption key from a criminal organization. That said, organizations without viable backups sometimes pay. The calculus of a hospital unable to access patient records is different from a company that can restore from clean backups in 48 hours. The decision should be made in advance, not under a 48-hour countdown. Ransomware is not an advanced, persistent threat. It's a well-resourced criminal industry exploiting unpatched vulnerabilities, weak credentials, and absent offline backups. The attack that costs a hospital 48 hours of downtime and $10 million in recovery costs is frequently prevented by 4 things: patching, multi-factor authentication on all remote access, offline tested backups, and a practiced incident response plan. None of those are exotic. None require a large security budget. They require discipline, and they require executing consistently before 3:17 a.m. If you want to understand the specific ransomware group that built the most sophisticated criminal infrastructure in this space before it was taken down, our video on Lockbit covers the organization that ran ransomware like a corporation. The discipline in this video stops most attacks before they start. The crews that still get through are the professionals. If this stayed with you, our video on Lockbit, the ransomware gang that made $1 billion before the FBI took it down, goes further into how that machine was built. It is on this channel.